Greetings. I'm Obidike Kamau, and I'm the Associate Director of the Library at Texas Southern University. I have the pleasure this evening of interviewing Mr. Thomas Burrell of the Black Farmers and Agricultural Association. Mr. Burrell, first of all, welcome to TSU-TV.
Thank you, Brother Obidike. Thank you for having us on the show.
It's my pleasure. What I really want to do, I believe that the message that you have is very, very urgent and very significant. And I've been going over in my mind about where to start, because this is such a deep historical situation. And so what I want to do is I want to just start with the lawsuit, the first Pigford lawsuit. I would like for you to explain what's involved in that, and then we can just follow the evolution of the various lawsuits, because it has spawned four additional ones.
Yes.
So can you tell us what Pigford 1 is, and let's start right there.
Pigford 1 is a class action lawsuit, and it was, the original complaint was filed by several African American farmers, and they were alleging that the United States Department of Agriculture had violated their civil rights, had discriminated against them by denying them loan and credit benefits.
Explain real quickly why the concept of credit is so important in this action that we'll be discussing.
Well, credit is important because we are not only a democracy, but we believe in economic development. This country is a beacon of economic opportunities. And in order for a person to take advantage of economic development opportunities, as the legislators said in 1866, after we were freed from slavery in the 13th Amendment, in 1865, Congress came back and said that simply freeing a person does no good if they are not allowed to be able to contract.
Okay.
Economic development, if you want to leave something for your children's children, then you have to be able to contract. Wealth is stored up in contracts.
Okay.
Property, bank accounts, insurance policies, etc. These are all bastions or avenues or vault of economic development and wealth. Contracting then is essential for that. Well, so African Americans did not have the right to contract during slavery.
Okay.
And simply freeing them without giving them the benefit to enter into contracts was not necessarily what all citizens had. So in 1866, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act. And that Civil Rights Act basically is what we know today, the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement.
Okay.
But in 1866, the act had nothing to do with accommodation, sitting next to someone. The act said every citizen, every person in every state and every territory had the same right to sue, to be a party, to give evidence for the protection of person and property as is enjoyed by white citizens. That's a contract right.
Okay.
And sometimes I'll use the analogy. The difference between a homeless person and Bill Gates, if we use Bill Gates as a standard of wealth, is the homeless person, for whatever reason, is not contracting with anybody. Bill Gates is wealthy not because there are more hours in the day, but because he enters into contracts, or by virtue of people buying his products. I'm from a city, Memphis, Tennessee, where we have a man by the name of Fred Smith, who owns Federal Express. Fred Smith is a wealthy individual because every time you send a package through Federal Express, you are entering into a contract with Fred Smith.
So
the homeless person didn't enter into a contract. So the inability of not contracting will determine whether or not you're going into poverty and homelessness or prosperity and wealth. That's why people come to this country from foreign countries, because we will give them the right to contract. And contracting then will take away from or dissipate or mitigate any other disadvantages by race or sex that that person might have.
And I don't want to get too hung up on this, but it sounds as if you can enter into contracts almost unconsciously or certainly unaware of.
Precisely. Everything that you have on, everything that you have in your house, everything that when you open up your cupboard, you open your refrigerator, That item is there because you contracted. You went into a store. You went to a supermarket. The homeless person, the reason he is homeless, he can't contract for a place to live. He can't contract for food. Now, the question is, are you contracting with somebody else? Because wealth requires that you then get a contract from them. Okay. Now, African Americans, after 1865 and 1866, we then were able to contract, and we were able to acquire over 16 million acres of land. We could not read, we could not write, ebonically speaking, we didn't know where our college, no pun intended, or university was at. But we were allowed to contract. We used our natural talents. We were farmers, we were growers, we were producers. Now we can contract, therefore we were growing for the master, as it were. Mm-hmm. Now we can contract for ourselves, and within 45 years after slavery, Brother Kamau, we purchased more land, or our ancestors, our grandparents, per capita than we own today, all because they could contract.
And they realized.
And they realized. So we do it intuitively. But more than anything, the difference that separates this country from a socialist country is we encourage contracting.
Okay.
People who make widgets in Korea, who make widgets in other places, now they may not be able to contract with those widgets for their own self-purposes and self-determination. Mm-hmm. But here, whatever trade you have, whatever commodity you produce, whatever service you produce, you bring that to this country, we will allow you to contract with that without the restrictions that other countries may impose, and therefore people are are eligible and capable of creating wealth and leaving prosperity for their posterity, which is their children's children.